car falling further and further down in the Pro-Am category. That's a class now that's being led by Michael Bartels in the Vita 4-1 Ferrari. And we've got Audi mechanics getting ready for the next pit stop. You can see the board there, the reminders to the driver of what they have to do to put it in gear, to reset, and we've got the safety car out because of this incident involving the Ferrari and the Porsche. So really it's so that the marshals can quickly and safely get those cars out of harm's way. It's damage, but in the darkness like this, it's very difficult to try and push them back onto the circuit with the amount of traffic to come through. So safety car is out for Romain Brandella's Ferrari, and also for the number 18 Porsche that has gone off the circuit as well. You see 23 that's pitted for United Autosports. That was the car that Stefan Johansson was behind the wheel of most recently. And just looking to see who was driving 18 when the Porsche had its moment. That car now is way out of contention, and the car down in 42nd place. Yes, so with any hope of a good finish now out of the window, the car that Alessandro Bonetti was driving is having to be dragged out of the gravel. 43 Simon Knapp in the pit lane, another of these charismatic Z4 BMWs going well in the Pro-Am Cup. And there, oh dear, it gets worse, doesn't it, for UA, because being pushed into its garage, Johnny Herbert, who took over in fact from Stefan Johansson. So he'd done his stint, but Johnny Herbert, oh dear, having been up here earlier on talking about the importance of getting to the finish, now finds the car having to be wheeled back into the garage, and the safety car is on track. It may be that the team just electing to do a little bit more work on that car whilst the pace of the race like this is neutralised. But with the safety car on the circuit, the 17th placed Audi into its garage, and also Simon Knapp's car going into its garage as well, 43. That was the one that David Hart was spinning on a couple of occasions earlier on, and 33rd that car had fallen to. And another one back into the pit lane is number 9, the Auto Orlando Sports Porsche. Paolo Roberti has just pitted for fuel. In fact, he's now rejoined. So that car that's fallen now down to 6 laps adrift of the race leader, 19th place overall, back into the race. But a car that really should have been still fighting, I think, to be in the top 3. It was competitive at the start of the race. Right, 98 is due a driver change. So out gets Mike Rockenfeller. And it was for the first stint of the race in that car. The car being driven by Marcel Fassler, who should therefore be due to get back into it on the rotation. Meantime, what's up at United Autosports? Johnny Herbert's car in the garage, and the attention is on that front left corner. So the safety car continues to circulate. Shouldn't take long, I wouldn't have thought, to clear up this incident, just to wait for the cars to get scooped up, then a big long gap in the traffic, get them back out of harm's way, and then the safety car can peel back in again. But this is the third safety car period of the race so far. .123, Carl Rosenblatt brought the car in. Carl in his 20th 24-hour race. He's done Le Mans, he's done Spa, and there is 22, Eric Vassier, off the road. So that's one car that's going to need retrieval. Meantime, 32 has come into the pit lane. Now, Bert Langin and Philippe Albuquerque sharing with Stefan Ortelli. And it was Stefan earlier on that had the drive-through penalty for clipping the Mercedes into a spin up at Les Combes. So Ortelli back behind the wheel, and now let's see what he can do. Are they going to change tyres on that car? Is it going to be just fuel? Let's see. Tyres come out, so fuel done, and now a new set of Michelin to go on the car. The whole feel of the race changes though at this point as cars run through the night. In also comes the Gulf liveried Lamborghini, this car that has a former winner in fact of the event, Fabien Gira, as the lead driver, but the Belgian Andrea Barlesi has brought it in, and Barlesi sharing along with Fabien with Frédéric Fetien, and the driver from the United Arab Emirates, Karim Al-Azari, who was in a Ford Mustang for the VDS team here last year. We saw him off the road a few times, but he's come back for another crack at this. And Frédéric Fetien lives in Dubai. Fabien Girard has done much of his racing out there of late, drove in the Speed Car Series, so there's a UAE influence through all of this. And with the safety car out on track then, and the time gets to 10:30 here at Spa. Back into the race now goes Andrea Varlesi, the Belgian student, born in Paris, but Belgian by nationality, former kart racer, and then switched from karting to single-seater racing, and had a spell in saloons as well. In fact, drove in the Clio Cup for a time, then into the Formula Le Mans category within the Le Mans series last year. Well, there, with its damage, about to head to its pit box, is the Ferrari number 42, which is the car that has had a fairly checkered race so far, really, and certainly in the last few laps in the dark. Romain Brandella has not had a great time, but he's an experienced driver, so strange that it's happening to him. He's raced in the Peugeot 206 Cup, raced Porsches, he's raced in the French Endurance Championship, in French GT, in the Ferrari Challenge, in the Blancpain Endurance Series this year, but that car is going to have a rather lengthy stop, I think, while they sort out the damage, get the gravel out of it. And as the safety car is just coming over the line, 18 also, which was another car that had to be dragged out of an awkward place, has come into the pit lane. Alessandro Bonetti brought it in, the International GT Open racer, former Formula Renault 3.5 and Formula 3000 single-seater driver, sharing with the team owner, Gianluca De Lorenzi, also Beniamino Caccia, and Lorenzo Bontempelli, who has been very quick this year in the International GT Open. So the drivers that they've got should be decent enough, should be quick enough to bring that car home for a good result. But again, just to make the point, other drivers have been saying it when they've been up here, it is important just to keep out of trouble. In the background there is the 008 Aston Martin. Now that had a lengthy pit stop a little while ago, but Thomas Enger was the real gun in that car, has been doing good things, and in fact it was Thomas that brought it in just recently. There's a great spectacle, isn't it? It's at a reduced pace behind the safety car, but you've got the lights of the competing cars, of the pits, of the paddock, of the village. Now, Richard Dean's United Autosports team has not been having a great hour, with all sorts of dramas, all sorts of problems going on for the three cars. Let's try and find a little bit more about it. It's been a busy time for Richard. He's in the pits with Hayley Coxon.
Richard, it's been great to see you racing in the Audi R8 once again. You have been experiencing some issues. Can you give us an update on the cars?
Well, I wish I could give you an absolute accurate one, but there's some electrical issue that we've got that keeps cutting in when we're out on the track, and we have to do a sort of a reboot, which is not our ideal out on the circuit, which is literally an ignition off and back on again, and it keeps recurring. Safety car's out, so we took the opportunity to bring it in the garage because we were about ready for a brake change anyway, so we thought we'll do a garage brakes and then just try and get to the bottom of this electrical issue, because we're slightly nervous that something happens on track.
So Frank Kettler being able to respond, and the gap between the next pair, Leclerc and Hezemans, 9/10 of a second when they went to the last sector. Let's catch up with Thomas Enger's problems though in the 008 Aston Martin. Thomas has given away in that car. He's in the pits. There he is with Hayley.
Thomas, we just saw the car parked up in the garage for quite a while now. What's going on?
Well, I had a small touch with Mercedes SLS. There was a misunderstanding between me, him, and the GT4 car. We both tried to go around the GT4 car, and we ended up in touching each other. So unfortunately, we lost a few laps. It's not the end of the race. Obviously, we are trying to catch up right now. The car is running well. My teammate is behind the wheel, so we still have, early hours into the night. We still have a long time to go. Anything can happen. It's unfortunate we lost so many laps, but we'll be fighting back.
So now is it waffle o'clock?
Well, I think it starts to rain, so we might get a waffle and go into the motorhome.
Thank you.
I think waffle o'clock sounds like the absolute ideal, doesn't it? Every time you walk out of the media centre here, you get this lovely waft of the Belgian waffles being cooked on the frite. All you now need is a bottle of Chimay beer to go with it, and your night is complete, I think. So, as Thomas Enger contemplates his diet, out on track, Still, you've got the 76 BMW looking good in 5th place, running in that gaggle of cars that you just saw. Edward Sandstrom, Claudia Hurtgen and Dirk Werner. And the number 40 pole-sitting BMW Z4, as you heard a little while ago from Mark Henrici, now a retirement. Meantime, concert in full swing. Bob Sinclair entertains at Spa-Francorchamps this weekend. And people there trying to work out which way to look, at the concert or at the track, where there's still an awful lot going on in this race. So we've had now 3 safety car periods. We're heading towards 11 p.m. and Audi continues to hold sway here. A lap up is the 99 car over 33, so they continue their dominance. They're going through. Is the 35. Oh, and a big crash. That's the Hezemans car. That's Mike Hezemans' Mercedes that was in 8th place, and it's bounced off the barriers. That's going through the Paul Frere corner, I think I'm right in saying, at the far end of the lap. Go right, head up towards Blancpain, that section of the circuit towards the completion of the lap. But 15, Mike Hezemans somehow got himself onto the grass on the inside. He bounced off the barrier back into view. And are we heading for another safety car period here? How much damage has been done? Can Mike get the car running again? People coming through the first of those 2 right-handers and suddenly finding a car at 90 degrees. And has Mike got the car moving? Can he get it moving? Certainly damaged, you can see that. So Hezemans trying to either get it out of the way or get it back into the race, but for the moment it doesn't want to go forward or backward. And having said that, was a car that was looking strong. It is now not looking like it's going any further. So a double winner of the event, Mike Hezemans, does get it going, thankfully. Should get him out of harm's way, but now he's driven into the gravel, I fear. Got it out of harm's way, but he's probably got himself stuck. And that just exacerbates the problem, doesn't it? So the car's now in the gravel. That's going to need retrieval from there, and is this going to be yet another safety car period? So it's Mike Hezemans at the wheel. He was catching for 8th place, Antoine Leclerc, and I think Mike realises that that's that. Another problem may have been it didn't want to turn either after its impact, and so the Dutchman gets out of the car. Big disappointment. He has a look at the damage, but Marshall's there saying, walk this way, sir. Snatch vehicle's on its way, so if he gets back into the car, they can bring the car hopefully out of the gravel, and potentially can limp it back to the pit lane, depending on how bad the damage is. So the track is clear, and hopefully this retrieval can be done just under a yellow flag. So the car that was then in 9th place now starts to pull down the order, and up into 9th has just gone then Fred Makovici in the Hexis AMR Aston Martin. Try Hezemans, Mike's dad, in the middle of that throng of people in the garage. There's Anthony Kumpen, and Mike getting out of the car once again. And still having a look at the damage. What he's probably now trying to work out is where they can attach a tow rope, what's left of the front. But Anthony Kumpen, who himself, as we were discussing a little while ago, has had a sizable accident in the Spa 24 Hours, now sympathising with his teammate Mike Hezemans, who doesn't often drop it, has to be said. Mike's a hugely experienced driver, a very safe pair of hands, so whether it was driver error or whether there was contact with another car that pitched him off the road, we didn't quite see. Just caught the end of the incident as he bounced off the barrier. But the net result of that is that we've got yellows out on track. Mike Hezemans' Mercedes is falling further and further down the race classification now. Is intended to be picked up by the headlights of the cars, and it then tells them to keep well away by steering away from the incident in the gravel bed, but it's not being terribly reflective, that board. Right, now can they get the Hezemans Mercedes out of the gravel? Try. Might possibly on the radio as well at this point to explain to the team exactly what happened and exactly what he thinks the damage is. I'll be able to see these pictures, but it's only that one angle of the car for the moment. The race director, of course, also has the benefit of looking at closed-circuit TV pictures. He'll know whether the drivers are responding to those yellow flags and whether it's still safe to carry on this operation and let the race continue. And with now the fastest man on the circuit having been Stefan Ortelli, Anthony Kumpen is a frustrated man in the pit lane, and he's with Haley.
Anthony, unfortunate incident for Michael, but hopefully you get back out there.
Yeah, Mike went off, and it looks like the front left wheel is a bit loose. So we'll see if he gets back in, but doesn't look so good. We were okay in dry conditions, but once it just starts drizzling, our car really had no grip. So I can't imagine what happens.
Everybody's rooting for you here. You've got so many family here, fans egging you on and hoping you do well.
Yeah, you know, I was the last Belgian to have won this race, but it will definitely be not for this year, maybe next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 years ago, Anthony won with Mike Hesmans and Jos Mentum, and we lost Jos earlier on in the race when the Lamborghini expired with its big blown engine, and now it looks like the Hesmans Mercedes, you can see it bouncing off the barrier, but how it got there, it might just lose the back of the car and it went across the circuit. Didn't see anybody else involved in that, but certainly that was the outcome. Mike Hesmans bouncing off the barrier, and looks like we've lost all three of those winning drivers out of this event now. The winning team of 09, they've split across different cars this year, but Hesmans, Kumpen and Menton look as though that's the end for them. Twan Hesmans there looking very stone-faced about it all. So with the race leader now on lap 158 and still a lap clear of the opposition, then the Marc Bassang-driven Audi looking pretty dominant up front at present. To build up a lap's advantage, very useful indeed. Gives you a little bit of breathing space if things start to go wrong. But the way that 98 is recovering, the sister car, after having a very, very slow lap after a pit stop when it had this gearbox problem. Indeed, the car actually ground to a halt and pit out at one point, but it's now in third place and catching Timo Scheider for second. So Marcel Fassler, who, like Timo Scheider, is a former DTM star. In fact, Timo's still in DTM, but Marcel Fassler raced for Mercedes a few years ago. This is a battle developing now for second place. So it's well worth watching Scheider being caught by Fassler. Well, it's been a very active 24 hours so far. An awful lot has developed. Let's just quickly look back on one or two of the highlights of the race, which began, of course, with Mark Goossens taking that early lead until he was biffed out of the way by erratic teammate Ludovic Sunier, who came up the inside to get past Peter Koch. He got past the Lamborghini, but then bounced off Goossens, and it meant that Sunier limped round to retire eventually with the damage. Andrew Picody's McLaren had a big accident coming out of La Source. He was up in third gear, as we've now learnt, and was tagged by another car, went into the barrier one side, spun across and hit the barrier on the other. And it wasn't just Andrew that was in strife. Then BMW Z4s contrived to drive into each other coming out of the bus stop. Thankfully, that wasn't the biggest drama of the race. They were all able to continue. But Stefano Ortelli was in rather forceful mood. He made this rather bold effort. It didn't pay off at all. And he ended up tagging Thomas Jäger's Mercedes into a big tar-squealing spin over the safety runoff at Les Combes. Then Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof had this big accident in his Lamborghini. He was okay, rather confused as to exactly how it had all happened. On track, though, it became a battle between Audi and Porsche, as Andrea Piccini battled with Christian Menzel, and the Team Manthey Porsche threaded its way through into the lead of the race. Julian Rodriguez went off the road coming out of Les Combes, just understeered himself out wide, having locked up, skated off through the gravel, and that car, also with a steering problem, having lost a great deal of time outside the top 20 now. Alain Lee was biffed into a spin. The aggressor was the number 35 Mercedes, this time with Kenneth Heyer at the wheel. Eric Carroll's Ferrari badly delayed as well as he tried to find a way past. The next spinner was David Hart in his BMW Z4, who got it wrong coming out of the pith path. He ran wide through the gravel, back onto the circuit. Thankfully, everybody was able just to dodge around him. Then Andrea Piccini was whacked into a spin as well, trying to go around the outside of a Porsche that seemed to be heading for the pit lane. As the Porsche straightened up, it just glanced the back of Piccini's Audi, turned him around. That drama cost Andrea around about 11 seconds, and then later he had a gearbox problem and had a very slow lap. Then we lost a car that had led, the Lamborghini. Mark Hayek at the wheel, the Blancpain boss, had a big engine failure, and that meant that both of Hans Reiter's cars out of the race within a couple of hours of the race getting underway. And it's the second event in a row in the Blancpain Endurance Series that we've seen that 24 Lamborghini with smoke belching out of the back of it. Menzel's Porsche headed for the pit lane with an alternator problem up front. As it then was, Christopher Hauser driven Audi continued to be dominant, and it has just pitted once more incidentally as the race leading car. But as the team went to work, they put new tyres on it, new tank of fuel, back into the lead, 99 looking strong. Matthias Ekstrom brought 33 into the equation. The car moving up into second place, shared by Timo Scheider and Greg Franchi. But Sam Audis weren't having quite such a healthy time. Eddie Cheever bailed out of the run towards Eau Rouge with a problem, and the car ground to a halt out of harm's way in the pit exit lane. And one of the United Autosports cars then a very early casualty. Mike Rockenfeller back into racing after his big accident at Le Mans, doing a good job on the wheel of 98, and having brought the car up into third place, still chasing after 99, with Christopher Haase having done a very good job to give that car an increased advantage, and now he's been able to lead by over a lap, whereas Jack Gerber had a moment, bounced off through the gravel, hit the tyre barrier, but the number 50 Ferrari currently running in 15th place, back into the race, with Jack having 3 very quick co-drivers. Then we had errant Ferraris going off the road, not once, but twice. And with the safety car ultimately being deployed to clear up cars in dangerous places, that gave United Autosports a chance to get Johnny Herbert's car into the garage and try and trace this mysterious cat-out problem it's got. 42 was a Ferrari that needed attention, having had a couple of spins. Eventually it was brought back, and after Romain Brandalla's dramas, the car needed a bit of repair. So also did 43, David Hart, Simon Knapp and Jeroen Den Boer, bringing that car initially into a good place within the top 20, but then spins and dramas costing it lots of time and ultimately sending it to its pit garage. Tyres for the Mike Hasemans driven Mercedes. It then had a longer stop while they sorted out brake pads, but that has been the most recent cause of a safety car, with Hasemans having a big off. Another Porsche that was in the wars was 18, the Gianluca De Lorenzi car, that also needed retrieval. It brought out the most recent safety car period, but with the racing getting back underway, Mike Hasemans was busy catching for 8th place when he got it wrong, coming through the Paul Fred corner, charged the barrier, and that car, having now tumbled further and further and further down the order, means that it's in 19th place in the classification. All of which means it is still an Audi 1-2-3. And endurance sports car races, you get used to talking about Audi's doing well, but that was mainly in prototypes. Now they're starting to work wonders in GT racing as well. In 9th place, number 35, Mercedes has just pitted. Thomas Jäger at the wheel. That's the car that we saw being assaulted by Ortelli earlier on, and then assaulting Alan Lee coming into the bus stop. And with the Mercedes in danger of losing a place to Henri Moser here, they need to be pretty quick about this pit stop, get the car back into the race, but 9th spot is where that car is. Now, we've seen the damage to the number 22 Ferrari, and it's looking like quite a long pit stop. Bad news, I was saying earlier on about Lionel Como having taken class pole position. That car runs in the Gentleman Trophy, and Lionel himself, the sufferer of this form of arthritis, raising money and raising awareness indeed for the condition and for the charity. Well, let's hear from him, because Lionel is in the pit lane and he is with Haley Coxon to talk about the race and indeed his fundraising.
Lionel, unfortunately the car is sat in the garage. Can you tell us the extent of the damage?
In fact, first of all, we had a problem of steering wheel, so we lose 45 minutes, and after Thomas, who was driving, get out of the road and knock a rail, so the car is very damaged, but we will try hard to repair the car and to go and continue the race, because it's very important for us to be at the end of the race. We support the Arthritis Foundation, and we give 10 euros per kilometer for the medical research on arthritis. So it's very important for us to be at the end of the race. So we will work hard to manage to go again on the race.
And how much money are you hoping by the end to raise?
Sorry?
How much money are you hoping to raise by the end of the event?
I hope that at the end of the race we will give 35,000 million euros. 1,000 euros, you know?
1,000 euros. Thank you very much. Very good luck to you.
Well, fingers crossed, it's a great effort, and although he's a very quick racing driver, class pole position setter, Lionel Kamal a sufferer, and does a remarkable job to race as quickly as he does. And a young guy as well, suffering from the condition, not good to see at all. Well, the team now, Sport Garage, an experienced squad, go to work. The car also, in fact, had some damage in the second practice session. It was wet, like most of Thursday was here at Spa. They had to sort that out. Now more damage done. It's one of those relentless weekends, of course, the Spa 24 Hours, and it tends to be, if you start badly, it just carries on in the same vein. So, as people now start to think about their stomachs rather than what's going on the track, we've got the race leaders on lap 166, and it's Mark Basseng at the wheel of the number 99 Phoenix Run Audi. It's Phoenix Audi 1-2 at the moment, in fact, with, in third place, now a lap behind, number 33 after its most recent pit stop, which has still got Timo Scheider at the wheel. In other words, therefore, 99 is still a lap ahead of 33, but the significance now is that we've had that change for second place. Up into second spot has come number 98, which has got Marcel Fassler at the wheel. So the former DTM racer has now got himself ahead of current DTM racer Timo Scheider. Now 32, Stefan Ortelli still charging up the order as best he can, but he's got a big mountain to climb here in order to get anywhere near the lead lap. And 32 is now in 27th place. It's done 155 laps. The leader has done 165, so 10 laps adrift. You heard Bert Langevin talking about how much time was lost with this suspension drama that the car had. And with Mike Hazeman's then, we had his accident in the Mercedes, looking as though that car now is going to go no further. So for so many teams in such a short space of time, real dramas. And as is often the case around here, even though you've got the improved runoff areas these days, there's an awful lot of damage to be sustained. When the car does go off, it tends to go off very spectacularly and in a very bruising fashion. Carnival 104, which has not drawn attention to itself too much over the course of the race, but has just done so with the race director, has got no lights working at the back of the car, so it needs that addressing by the team next time the car comes in. It ran unmarked tyres in qualifying, so it had all its times cancelled and was put to the back of the grid. But the drivers, Michel de Costa, Rick Renmans, Tom Langenberg, and the Dutch driver Oscar Slingerland, are the crew charged with bringing the Speed Lover entered 911 GT3 Cup to the finish. The Cup class introduced into the Gentleman Trophy for the older type of Porsche. Porsche, of course, has gone through this series of recent upgrades, and this car is one of the earlier generation 997 shaped cars before the Cup S came along, so it still has a home, and it's good to have as many different cars as you can on the grid. You see 99 going through Pau there with Mark Basseng at the wheel, so the former German Clio Cup winner, Clio Sports V6 Trophy competitor, kart racer, Porsche racer, and now a very quick Audi racer indeed, working his way out of the piff paff and heading towards the Paul Frere corner. Into the pit lane has come 9 then, which is the Autolando Sport Porsche. Paolo Roberti was the man behind the wheel of that car, and of course this is the car that won the opening round of the series at Monza, but it has fallen way back into 15th place. It was running, of course, in the lead early on in the race, with Paolo having started that car, but now I'm afraid we had the slow lap when Raffaele Giammaria was at the wheel. Also it was penalised because Raffaele exceeded the maximum driving time permitted, so that's put them on the back foot a little bit. Paolo Roberti has tried to bring them back into contention, so full service this time around, fuel, driver and tyres, and the car can go back into the race very shortly. So the fueling is done, driver strapped in, windscreen cleaned, and the new Michelin's about to go on. The Porsche that was very fuel efficient at Monza. Here though, fuel less of an issue because of this 65-minute maximum that you're allowed to do as a stint. Audi getting ready for another pit stop, which is going to be 98, I think, soon, isn't it? It's the one that runs slightly out of sequence after its earlier gearbox problems. 99 still looking strong up front, however. So the Mark Basseng car leading the way. It's just gone through onto lap 168 as number 9 Porsche then goes down the pit lane to rejoin the race. The Audis with the lights ablaze, looking ever so spectacular. Now, great shape, the R8 and the R8 LMS, having become, in the last 2 or 3 seasons, one of the cars to beat within GT3 racing. Set now, it would appear, for its biggest task yet. If it can win this, then it will underline and really prove the worth of all the effort that Audi has put into this race to look after the customers. And they brought, of course, some of their top drivers into the event. Le Mans winner Mike Rockenfeller, for example, DTM stars Timo Scheider, a former winner of this race, and Matthias Ekstrom. It is 98 that's in the pit lane there. Marcel Fassler is in. Windscreen being cleared. Tyres are ready, but do they need them? Fire extinguisher on standby just in case of any fuel spillage. And the Audi mechanics, well drilled, know exactly what they're doing. They've practiced this 1,000 times. And are they going to change tyres? The answer is yep, up it goes on the jacks. So new set of Michelins to go on. And as this car is sitting in the pit lane, so it will put 33 back into second position. But it's also now going to lose its lap again. It's 99, it's about to come over the timing line, so still the 99 Basseng, Hassett, Stippler car is looking the stronger of the two, because it's always got this advantage over 98 and indeed over the 33 Belgian Audi Club car. Now, car number 60 has just been given a drive-through penalty, and car number 60 is the McLaren of Adam Christodoulou, Glyn Geddy, Phil Quaife and Roger Wills. Now, it is Article 91 of the regulations of the championship that have been breached. We shall research this, but the surviving McLaren is, as I say, now going to be given this drive-through penalty as you look at the 98 Audi going back down the pit lane. We just handed over number 9 Porsche. He's in the pit lane. Let's hear from him and Haley.
Paolo, we've just seen you giving feedback to the engineers. What's been happening with the Porsche?
Yeah, we have the problem. Gianmaria had the crash with the slow car. We broke the radiator and we lose the 6 lap. More or less, it was the 5th hour. Now we are 6 laps behind. We try to finish the race top 10 to take some point for the championship. Not easy, but we try.
Thank you, Paolo.
Yeah, the radiator being right at the very front of a Porsche, so even gentle contact tends to do a lot of harm to that, so understandable that it has had the delay, or they tried to repair that, and so now way down the order, sadly, is number 9. That car now with Gianluca Roda at the wheel. With Mark Basseng leading the way, and now with a minute in hand over the WRT Audi behind. We've got the drivers on lap 169, or the leading cars on lap 169, and in terms of pit stops, there you can see it's 7 stops for number 99 and number 33, but 98 running slightly out of sequence is a stop ahead at the moment. Done 8 pit stops, and it's because of the car running slightly out of sequence that it rises and falls up to second and then back down to third, depending on when it pits. But now 7 pit stops is about right. Peak time in the village off track. It's time for food, it's time for beer. Can't come to Spa and not have fruit either, and a glass of Jupiler, and everybody enjoying themselves, which is all part and parcel of the Spa 24-hour weekend. Always a great party atmosphere, lots of enthusiastic Belgians come over and camp, but also there's a big Dutch contingent that comes across for the Spa 24 hours, always has been, and with the party in full swing and the beer flowing, then there's much going on. The Ecurie Cos Aston Martin, incidentally, just going back to the race for a moment. He says being an anorak, he's up into 17th place, and that car's going remarkably well. It's just pitted, admittedly. Andrew Smith has brought the car in, but that car really going very, very strongly now after its power steering fluid that was needed at the start of the race. So, and Jay Twyman was up here a little while ago talking about the importance of getting it to the finish. Suddenly, they're looking strong now, getting higher and higher up the order. They are 8 laps away from the race leaders, but it's a very, very good effort, this, by the 4 young drivers who, just to make the point again, have been very busy trying to raise the funding for this project. There goes car number 1, which is the Vita 4-1 Ferrari that Eric van der Poel, Jean-Carl Vernet and the Belgian driver Nico Verdonk share, and that car is now 39th with Vernet at the wheel. In the paddock, meantime, Audi's merchandise team hoping to convince a few more Audi fans to part with their euros for Audi flags or clothing or model cars. And while it's an Audi 1, 2, 3 like this, it's BMW 4, Ferrari 5, 6, 7, Ford 8, BMW 9 and Ferrari 10. And car 60, the McLaren, yet to serve this drive-through penalty. Now, car 60, the McLaren, the surviving McLaren of the 3, of course, now, is in 25th place. In fact, now is in the pit lane, so it's serving the drive-through this time. And as it does so, the driver behind the wheel of that car is Roger Wills. So the Kiwi forced into the pit lane. Roger, who has been a very, very busy historic racer. He entered every race, and was it 25 at Brands Hatch at the end of May, and raced at Le Mans for the first time this year. But ever the enthusiast, also did the historic race and did it in 2 cars. Started one, finished in another, and then went off into the 24-hour race. Arch enthusiast, and he's got a couple of nice McLarens of his own in his stable. He's got an M1B and an M1C Can-Am car, but now racing the MP412C GT3 for the first time. We're looking at United Autosports mechanics hard at work, because that's Johnny Herbert's car that's now in 21st place. Had this mysterious electrical cat-out problem, but that now, they hope, sorted. Time for a new set of tyres, and 23 not that it can keep going or pick up places, because inevitably others will have their dramas ahead. And Johnny sharing the car, just to make the point again about the eclectic mix of drivers you've got in the cars, with Stephanie Hansen, another former Formula 1 racer, with Zach Brown, who is the co-owner of the team. Zach, who is American but has done much of his racing in Europe in his early days as an aspiring single-seater racer. These days runs a big marketing and sponsorship agency. And Richard Dean, who's the other co-owner of the team, and Richard's background goes back to the 1980s in karting and Formula 4 1600 and Formula 3000. He was a British GT champion in the days of the Dodge Viper, and had a spell as a managing director of Ginetta. Meantime, in the pit road there is the Ford Mustang that runs for the BDS Racing Adventures team of Benjamin Bailly, Julian Schroem, Jose Clos and Rafael van der Straten. And that was a car that at the end of the pit lane a little while ago had its loose wheel attended to in the fast lane of the pits, and they seem to have got away with that problem, but this is a rather longer stop, I think, now in the pit road. So Ford Mustang losing time all the while now as it's in pit road, and out on circuit we've got then the race leading Pro-Am class Ferrari, Nick Homerson at the wheel, 5th place overall, and he, along with Louis Macchiels, Andrea Bertolini and Michael Bartels, make a very effective combination of drivers in the class. But I'm intrigued to know from Michael why he's elected to put him and Andrea Bertolini into that class rather than pitching for outright honours, because they're going to be slightly compromised by the pace of the gentleman drivers that are with them. Just going back to McLaren for a moment, Article 91 of the regulations refers to only the team manager being allowed in the pit lane a maximum of 1 lap before the pit stop, no equipment in the working area before the car has stopped, team personnel and equipment has to withdraw as soon as the work is complete. No operation may be carried out by more than 4 mechanics. So it is along those lines that they have transgressed, either with people not withdrawing or equipment being out too early, or more people than is permitted out of the pit apron too soon. So it's all to do with the pit stop procedure that the McLaren has had that drive-through penalty, and Roger Wills, as the man behind the wheel, ends up being pinged for it. So that car then will lose time as a consequence, but as Chris Goodwin was telling us, they just want to get that car to the finish now. It's important to get some data, to get some more mileage for the test project. That car running on Michelin rubber, whereas the car that Chris himself was driving, the one that caught fire when Tim Mullen was at the wheel, that was on Avons, partly because of the shortage of Michelin tyres, but also partly because it would run on Avons in British GT, for example. That's the nominated tyre supplier, so it's important to try and gain data as to how the car would be on a different tyre supplier. So some of that was achieved. We've also just gathered news that number 1, 2, 3 Porsche has been retired. That was the Armand Fumal, Christian Lefort, Carl Rosenberg, Jerome Thierry car that's been in the pit lane for quite some time, but it can feel issues to force that out of the race. So gradually the number of retirements is increasing. 62 cars started the race, but quite a few falling by the wayside now. Some teams being able to get the cars back into the race, such as Sports Garage, still trying to work on the Lionel Comol Ferrari. But it's not just finishing, it's finishing within 75% of the winner. That's the real target here. Meantime, you're on board with Nick Homerson. Well, the dashboard is worth looking at, and that set of tail lights ahead is a car that he's chasing, but you get an understanding now of just how difficult it is in the dark. Find a reference point. Where's the next corner? Driving off the brake lights of the car ahead, and which way that goes, you go as well. New admiration for the drivers watching this, don't you? Nick Homerson, quick amateur racer then, hustling on. He's running in 5th place overall, and he's not been racing for that long, just over a decade. Began in 2000 in the Donkervoort Cup, the quirky Dutch-built cars. Had a spell in the Ferrari Challenge, and then raced GT3 Lamborghinis. Had a spell in GT2 with Paul van Splunteren in the Le Mans Series last year, but has really gone very well this year, hasn't he, in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Comes into the bus stop, chasing after the BMW just up the road. Powers his way over the timing line. It's all going strongly. That car in 5th place, snapping in the 2:29s at the moment, whereas the race leader, rather more confident driver Mark Basseng, doing 2:23s. So it goes to show the difference now between the pros and the AMs, certainly at night. But when you get that graphic display of just how difficult it is out there, then who can blame the less experienced racers for being a bit more cautious? Homerson's car, 5th overall. The class opposition now in 9th place. Archie Hamilton having taken over number 44 BMW, running 2nd in class. Archie, whose grandfather Duncan was a Le Mans 24-hour winner. First race here, although he's learnt the circuit on a simulator. He's raced in Porsches in the Carrera Cup GP, had a one-off outing at Brands Hatch last year in British GT that ended, I'm afraid, with a damaged car in qualifying, but has decided that the Spa 24 Hours would be a very good platform to showcase his ability this weekend. And Archie Hamilton running in 9th place in this car that he shares with Hubert Voss, Harry Cullen, and the very, very quick Xavier Marson. Now, we talked about the race order, as 76 BMW out of 4th place just comes in now over Sandstrom's car. But in terms of the time spent in the pit lane, fascinating graphic this, because it goes to show you that 7 stops for the Nick Homerson Ferrari, but 14 minutes and 6 seconds. That means it's been in the pits for the least amount of time relative to everybody else in the top 6. Something like 14.5 minutes is what they're sort of aiming for. But 98, of course, has been in for a bit longer because it's done more stops. But car number 2, 7 pit stops, but has been in there for less time than other cars in the top 6. And the least amount of time you spend in the pit lane, then the better it's going to be. So, looking pretty good this in terms of the pit work and the limited number of problems that has been necessary to sort out. 4v to 4-1. Then goes 76, then it growls its way back down the pit lane. The Sandstrom, Hürtgen, Berner driven BMW Z4, run by the Need for Speed team. car going strongly at the moment, does need to deliver on that now. Team Schubert operating the car. So with just 15 minutes to go before we get to midnight in the Total 24 Hours of Spa, you've got to look there at 35, which is the Thomas Jaeger driven Mercedes. I'm just wondering now whether or not that car, yes, Stefan Larrey did drive it, didn't he? He had a short stint earlier on in the race, but it's mainly been Thomas Jaeger as the real star in that has done the lion's share of the work, the former DTM racer, and he's now got it into 11th place. Meantime, at United Autosports, conversation goes on with the Dunlop tyre technicians and getting some feedback on what the tyres are like, how they're standing up to the amount of abuse they're being given. There you've got the 116 Viper back into the pit lane, still going strongly within the Gentleman Trophy, this car of Patrick Chaillet, Thierry Delattre de Bosco, Benoit Galland and Christophe Geffroy. So that car, which has gone fairly reliably so far in this race, completes its pit stop, and it is currently in 48th place, that with Geffroy at the wheel. BMW Z4, we may have lost the pole car, the Mark VDS Racing Team car, but they are still great looking and sounding charismatic cars, great to have on a GT3 grid. Meantime at Audi, calm before the storm here as the Belgian Audi Club WRT team awaits the next pit stop, and so before much longer Timo Scheider will be back in, but that car still chasing vigorously after Marc Basseng, but is effectively now a lap adrift. There's 32, Stefan Ortelli at the wheel, and Stefan